training executive for ROC title. I cover both Arizona and Nevada. We are growing nationally, which is super exciting. And I'm the creator behind ROC University. So every single week, every Thursday at 1 o'clock, we do a training. You can always go to rocuniversity.com, rocuniversity.com, go down to training schedule. You can see all the different trainings today. HVAC facts, every real estate professional should know. We did this sponsorship with Troy in tandem with Old Republic Home Warranty, which we're super excited for. Hopefully we get to do some stuff in the future together as well. But this is a highly, highly asked for class from Troy. He's done it in the past. It's a phenomenal class. So I'm super excited to get this in front of everyone today. Next week, we are diving into Facebook ads, how to create target marketing using Facebook ads. The 20th, we're talking about Instagram ads and that whole ecosystem. And then towards the end of the month, we are going to be talking more about your database with Kristen Bushnell. We've had her on before, a lot of great feedback. So I wanted to make sure we got her back on. So you can always go to rocuniversity.com, training schedule, and register for those. One other thing real quick, of course, VIP All Access. This is a free tool for you guys to be able to use. You just go in and create a login to sign up. Again, it's free. You get instant access. Thank God that's already saved in there. Once you log in, you're going to have access to a ton of things. So every month we upload social media posts for you, a newsletter, stories, tons of different assets on here. All you have to do is scroll down, click on your social media post, click July link, and it's going to ask you to just use this template in your free Canva account. So all the templates that we put out, you never have to upgrade to the pro version. It will always be free, and you can just go in and edit those however you want, change it for your branding. Same with the newsletter, right? So if you're in Nevada, you also have one specific to you guys as well. If you keep scrolling down, a lot more different Canva templates and learning assets you guys can take advantage of. So a lot of value in there, a lot of resources. You can always go to rocuniversity.com to find our training schedule, to sign up to be a VIP member. And of course, please, please, please write us in on your next deal so we can continue doing trainings just like today and bring more value to you guys. So we appreciate the partnership. I'm going to turn it over to Troy and Wendy. It's all yours, guys. Thank you so much.
Right. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. If I can get a thumbs up or at least an audio from you, Justin, that you can see this. Good. Awesome. Perfect. So I just want to give a special shout out to Old Republic. I noticed before we have Tara Carter, who covers the greater Phoenix area, Scottsdale. We have Wendy, who's going to be my person in the hot seat because we're going to be throwing some questions at her. I also noticed Kim Ferrar's on from Phoenix and also Vicky Hart from Lake Havasu area. And we might have other reps from Old Republic on, so I apologize if I did miss you. But I want to say special thanks to you guys for helping us put this on. And we are going to go into the basically information on HVAC that's important to the real estate agents. We're not going to go into the minutia, so that's not going to be something we're going to talk about. And I think as you go through the information, I think you'll understand why it's so important as your fiduciary responsibility to really have that conversation when it comes to home warranties. And not all home warranties are the same. So we'll talk a little bit about the differences, and Old Republic will highlight some of the reasons why we invited them here today to talk to you about HVAC. Obviously, looking at the chat, being that everybody's pretty much in 100+ weather, we have your attention, because now who can survive in Arizona in 100 degrees without air conditioning, right? Well, it's the same as your clients. So we're going to get into that a little bit. Just a couple things here. Typically, when we're doing a class, we say, put your phones away. But I'm going to show you this awesome tool, and it's free. And it's a wonderful tool for real estate agents. And if you have an app store for the iPhone, it's called In HVAC Calculator. So if you get a chance, download that onto your phone, and we'll show you this screen again here in a second. And then if you're using an Android, same thing, Inspection HVAC Calculator. This is an awesome tool. I'm going to show you how you can use it, but you can literally walk up to a unit, type in a few little details, and it's going to tell you how old that system is. So good information, and it doesn't cost you anything. Wendy, do you want to just say a couple words here before we get going?
Wendy Mueller, Old Republic Home Protection. Gosh, I've been with Old Republic for eons. I won't even tell you how long because it doesn't really matter. But I know enough about air conditioners and toilets than I ever wanted to know. But we have three of our reps here who are fantastic. So I know some of them were not able to make it. So please reach out to them if you have any questions, or if you have any questions in the chat section, go ahead and put it in there, and I will be monitoring that, and we'll answer your questions.
Great. And after every segment too, I'm going to say, is there any questions? So feel free to jump in there too. Now you're looking at a picture of myself and you're like, well, what's this guy have to do with title? So just so you know, I moved to Arizona about a year ago, but I've actually been a home warranty rep for, oh, by the way, Old Republic since 1999. But last year, I actually made the switch into title when I left North Carolina and I moved to Northern Arizona. But there was a little time in my life where I actually did HVAC. So I was the estimator. So I actually designed the systems, I ran the crews, I laid it out. So because of that, I had a very intimate knowledge of HVAC, and it really helped me when I was talking to my real estate professionals about HVAC and home warranty. And the reason why I came up with this class was not because I did HVAC, was because agents always called me and said, Troy, I need to order a warranty. And I'm like, well, which warranty do you want? And they're like, well, you tell me. And I said, well, how much money do you have? So then they give me the budget. And then I say, well, tell me about the HVAC. And then this is pretty much the response I get. So obviously, it's not something we talk about in this industry, but it's actually essential because it does help us to have more confidence, especially really when it comes to the most expensive system and probably the most important system now in the home. So again, we're going to educate you because knowledge is power. That's our goal. And as I mentioned before, this is a free class, but if you don't learn one new thing, I'll give you your money back. How's that sound? But I usually get feedback from agents that they'll fill sheets of information and details. And there's a lot of information as an agent that you will find available at your fingertips that is very useful when it comes to the negotiation, but also walking your clients through the process. So lastly, as I mentioned, Pico is with me because I'm at the house right now. We've had a lot of wind, so our office internet is not stable. So you might hear him, but it's the question mark. And there's an old saying, right? The only bad question is what type of question? Well, it's the one we don't ask. So if you have a question, feel free. You can post that on the chat. As Wendy mentioned, she'll be monitoring that along with Justin. So that way, after every segment, if there's a question, we can kind of address that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about 3 different systems, first of all, and I'm going to show you how to identify those. So you have to the very far left, which is on my screen, a split system. In the middle, we have a gas pack. And then we have a ductless mini split. So I'm going to show you the difference between them. It's very simple. So that way, when you walk up to a unit, you'll know right away what type of system you're looking at. So this is the most common system here in America, in Arizona, pretty much in any state, and that's going to be your split system. Now, what a split system basically means is that the system is split apart. So you have an air handler, or what we like to call a furnace, somewhere in the home, and then you have an outside unit as well. So there's an easy way and a hard way to tell if it's a split system. Hard way is get into that crawl space, get up in that attic, open every closet, go into the basement if you want, and try to find that furnace. I don't recommend that as a real estate professional. Instead, if you actually walk outside, you notice that there's this little black spongy pipe. That's called Armaflex. It's an insulation over the line sets, the copper line sets. And you'll also notice that the unit is apart or separate from the home, and there's space between the wall and the unit. That tells you right there it's going to be a split system. So that's the easy way. You literally, even at 110 degrees, you can go out, take a peek, look along that side wall, see that air conditioner sitting out there or heat pump is separate from the wall. Okay, we've got a split system. This is good because sometimes when we get an inspection report, the inspector might call out an issue with one of the units. And he says there's an issue with the split system. Now we know exactly what he's talking about, especially if you have a split system and you have the second system, which is a gas pack, which I'll show you in a second. But that black sponge, let me just show you what that looks like if you had X-ray vision. It actually travels through the wall and it actually connects to the furnace to what we call the evaporative or A coil. And that's what does all the magic. That's what creates the air conditioning in the summertime, but it also creates all that dripping water, because if you notice on that little A coil, there's that little orange or red tab. That's where the actual pipe connects for your drain pan. Because what ends up happening is that air conditioning just naturally dries out the air and it collects and condensates the water. So because of it, you get that water action. So that's basically the 2 items that are connected. The furnace in the summertime just is basically a big fan that blows the air pretty much through the ductwork of the home. So again, if you had X-ray vision, this is what you would see. And again, this black sponge material, which is those copper line sets, will connect somewhere, whether it's in the attic, down in the basement, garage, or a closet in the home itself. So that's as far as we're going to get into the minutia of HVAC when it comes to that, because I think that's pretty much the most important thing to know. Now, what is a gas pack, right? So a lot of people think that a gas pack means it's gas air conditioning, and that's actually not what it is. So what a gas pack is PAC stands for package unit. So instead of having two units separate in the home where you have one outside and one inside, everything is packaged together, and it could be on the ground, or it could be typically in, especially like Phoenix, Tucson, or even in Havasu on the roof. So why do we call it a gas pack then? Well, the gas is actually the furnace part. So it's natural gas or propane that's going to heat the home in the wintertime when it's cold. So you can have a gas pack, which is natural gas or propane heat, and it's still a package unit, or you can actually have a heat pump package unit. So, and I'm going to show you the difference, how you know the difference between the two. But you can see these two pictures here, right? So on the roof, you see this big, massive unit. You see that yellow line. Yeah, yellow stands for gas, because as you know, every utility has now a branded color. So white is electrical, blue is potable water, green is sewage, red is your coax, which will be like Ducal fiber or Cox cable, and yellow is going to be your gas line. So now they're coding that. And you can also see below that a little red shutoff valve. So that's going to be obviously a gas pack. And it's also, I'm going to show you this another photo of why it sits up on this sheet metal like it does. But it's a different relationship, if you notice, because now it's not separate from the home, it's completely connected to the home. So if you walk out and you see on the roof something that's completely connected to the home on a mass of sheet metal, then that's going to be a gas pack more than likely, or a package heat pump. If you can spot the gas line, which is yellow, then you know it's definitely a gas pack. And on the breakaway, you can see here, this is your heat exchanger. So that's using gas to heat the home in the wintertime. So what does that look like on the ground? Same thing, it's connected, just a little different. And sometimes people wonder, well, why is it connected? Well, it's basically to keep the rodents out, because you have ductwork that comes in and out of that unit. So it's just soft, spongy material. So you can imagine if you didn't protect it with that sheet metal, you know, mice, rats, possums would chew into it, and then it'd have a really beautiful heated and air conditioned space, and they can have full access to your home. So we don't want that. So that's why they put the sheet metal there, is to keep really the rodents out and protect that soft ductwork that's going in and out of the house. And then next to this, I just want to show you, this is what a package heat pump would look like. So same thing, it just doesn't use gas on the heat side, it uses a heat pump technology. And I explain that a little bit more in my heating class I teach, which we'll probably do in the winter time. So any questions between those two before we jump into the ductless mini split?
Troy, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of questions it seems frequently. Do you guys cover gas air conditioners? And I say, there is no such thing as a gas air conditioning. I mean, maybe back in the day, years ago, but I mean, they don't manufacture those and haven't for many, many years. Is that true?
Correct, yeah. So, I mean, if you had a gas air conditioner, it's probably going to be off-grid somewhere. So those are perfect for preppers, and yeah, they just really don't make them. And what we're talking about with a gas air conditioner is you're using actually gas to power the system. It's not burning gas to make air conditioning. You still have to have a compressor and refrigerant lines for it to work. Now, way back in the day, they used to use like ammonium gas. That I don't even think exists anymore. So it's not something that you're probably going to run across. So it's excluded from warranty plans because it really doesn't exist. So never confuse a gas pack with a gas air conditioner. It's not. The gas pack just basically, again, means it's going to be gas heat or being fired in the wintertime with natural gas or propane. So any other questions before we move on? And I can't see the boxes, so I apologize. I'm only on one screen. So
Thomas actually said, I have a unit on my roof, but no gas goes to it.
Yep, so that would be probably a heat pump package unit, more than likely. And so that means that it's probably running in the wintertime as well. So since we're talking about this, what a difference between an air conditioner and a heat pump. Air conditioner only runs in forward motion, which means that it basically pulls heat out of the home and replaces it with cold air. A heat pump is a yin and a yang. So in the wintertime, it actually runs in reverse. There's a reversing valve. So what it does, it pulls heat out of the actual atmosphere and it pumps it into the home. And the byproduct is on the outside of the unit is pumping out air conditioning. So those units that run in the winter and summer are considered heat pumps. They're very popular now, especially with the rise in costs when it comes to natural gas and that kind of phase out. We're seeing that already in New York, soon to be California, where they're trying to get away from, those fossil fuels that create, greenhouse gases or what have you. So perfect.
Troy,
Yeah.
one more question. Is one more efficient than the other?
Yes. Okay. That's a good question. And we'll get into that in a second. Okay. So I have a side-by-side comparison. So I'm going to talk about the pros and cons if that's okay. So we'll just shelve that for just maybe 2 minutes, and then we'll talk about pros and cons, because that actually is a very, very good question to talk about. So I'm going to show you just one more thing. So you see that unit on the roof, right? That's what it's sitting on. So it's nothing mechanical. It's just plain old sheet metal. And you can see this is called Pookie, which is the sealant. They've sealed that soft ductwork. So they call that like a jack stand. And then they drop it down on a crane. And so I have a question for Wendy. If you have a massive unit on your roof, which plan do you want to get? Because not all warranty plans will cover the crane, correct?
Correct. You definitely would want the ultimate plan, but really the platinum is the way to go. But the ultimate does cover the crane, and that's a nice add-on.
Yeah, so they're not cheap, and I can guarantee you that unit is way too big for 2 guys to pack it up a ladder. It's just not going to happen. So I had that picture in there because we do see a lot of these in the valley. So if you do have a home, you're selling it and you've negotiated a warranty, if they're going with the bare bones basic, that's fine. But you may want to tell your buyer, hey, you may want to upgrade, because if anything ever happens to that unit and they have to take it off and then put a new one on, that company, if you upgrade it to the ultimate and pay that difference, and I think they have up to 60 days, then they'll actually have that extra service, which they'll be very happy about, because that means then Old Republic coordinates the crane and they actually pay for that cost, and it's not cheap anymore. So like everything else, everything's expensive. All right, so here's that comparison. All right, so we see the size difference now. So on the left is one type of unit, on the right is a different. So can anybody chime in and tell me what's on the right, that small unit? What would we call that? Is that a split system or a package unit?
Package unit.
Okay, so on the right is a split system, yes, and on the left is a package unit, and it might be reversed from what you're looking at, but that big unit is a package unit. And we know it's a split system for 2 reasons. One, it's separate from the house, it's not connected. But 2, behind it, we can see that little black sponge material, that Armaflex. So that's your giveaway. Now, the one to the left, on my left is that big unit, and that's going to be a package heat pump. I know it's a package heat pump because if you look really carefully, it doesn't say don't touch, you'll get burned. It says don't touch, you'll get electrocuted and die. So that's usually a good signal that it's going to be a heat pump, because they have 220 volts running through that system, because that's your heat strips that are going to kick on if it gets too cold and the heat pump can't pull heat out of the air anymore. So pros and cons. So the pro to the package unit is they're cheaper. And if it springs a leak when it comes to the condensation line, it's not going to flood the house. And that's about it. So they don't last very long, honestly. When sometimes one component fails and the rest of the components are no longer made, you have to replace the whole system. So those are the real cons, and they're also not as efficient. You're actually getting to the point where if they can't change the technology, this is going to be a hard sell, because the federal government keeps on setting new standards and they're having a hard time with the package unit and keeping up. Split system, much more efficient. It has 3 different components. So here in Arizona, or even in Nevada, if a component breaks, like the inside air handler of the furnace, you can replace that, but you can still use your outside unit. Or if your outside unit breaks, you can replace that and it can work with the inside unit. So it's going to have a lot longer of a lifespan. Typically, the package units will last about 12 years, sometimes 15. You can push like 18 to 23 years on those split systems, that smaller unit. So even though it's a little bit more expensive, it's going to be more energy efficient, cheaper to repair, more parts are available. And that's a good question. I'm going to throw Wendy a curveball. Do you guys cover obsolete parts? Because I know that's an issue. Some companies will say that if they can't find a part, let's say in that package unit, they'll give you the money for the part and labor to install it, but you're on your own and replacing it. Is that what Old Republic does? Out of curiosity?
No, we do not. We do not.
Okay.
If we cannot locate the part, then we will replace whatever part it is, or the system.
Good. So if you have a scratch pad, write that down, because just reach out to your home warranty rep, whoever it is, and say, hey, Do you have an obsolete part clause? If so, what is it? Because if you're selling that product, just so you know, it's just going to increase the liability possibly on your end. And we're all about CYA, right? Which stands for what? Cover your assets. And that's what we want to do, is to make sure we're covering your assets as well. Let's go ahead and look at one more system. These are really popular. I know up in like the Havasu area, especially down in Phoenix, Tucson, they're putting these in your garages. And these are called ductless mini splits. So again, it's a mini split. It's split apart. It's going to be separate from your home. And if you could look through the walls and all that, you're going to see the refrigerant lines are going to travel. Usually it's in like what they call gutter duct, but it's just basically like a cover for those lines so they don't get beat down by the sun, but also they're ugly, so it kind of covers that. And it connects the inside unit to the outside unit. Okay, these are only electric, so they're not gas. So that means they can only come in two formats: air conditioning or heat pump. If it's air conditioning, it's only going to cool. If it's a heat pump, it'll heat and cool throughout the year. So these are really popular. And another question, I'm going to throw this at Wendy, because this is something also that comes to be an issue. Do you cover these? Because some companies have excluded these from their plan, I believe.
Yeah, that is correct. We do cover the mini splits, which is nice.
How about in the garage?
Yes.
Okay, so that's another one. So if it's not for, let's say, livable square footage, some companies will exclude it. But since we have, a very hot climate, you can actually have one in your garage then. And if it breaks, if you have an Old Republic, which is kind of cool, they'll cover that. So other companies might too. I'm just saying, reach out to them and just verify it. When I was looking over the plan, I thought that was really interesting, because where I came from in North Carolina, we didn't put those in our garages. We don't have those summers. So I was surprised to see that they would actually cover that as well. And do you have a limit on how many systems you cover?
Great question. No, we do not. If there are 3 or 4 air conditioners at the home, we cover them all. And we also don't have a limit on the amount that we cover, like the total amount. So if we had to replace all 3, as a matter of fact, we just had to replace 2 on an agent's home in Sedona. And he had an old system. It was an 8-SEER system, and he's getting it replaced with a 14-SEER system. And so, yeah, we have no dollar limits, which is great.
Awesome. And I have a slide later to show you on my own home and how much these things cost. And now when you look at that invoice, because this was 10 years ago, it needs to be updated because it's gotten so expensive. And we'll talk about why. So cool. So that was pretty much my home warranty tip. And here we go. Do you have a dollar cap toward repair replacement on HVAC? You answered that for me, Wendy. You say no. Just so you know, some companies, when I was reading over some of the brochures, have a cap of like $2,250 total for the year. I mean, that's not going to cut it anymore. So I'm not saying don't use them, because maybe they have a rep that you like, but at least if you're going to represent that warranty plan, let them know that to the homeowner they have a cap. So when they cap out, they're not coming to you and saying, what am I going to do with the next $10,000, because it's not going to pay for the system. So a lot of companies do not have caps. Some do. It's just always just getting that clarity if you can. And again, this is that invoice, right? So this was 10 years ago. It was a Trane. Tranes are awesome. Trane is like the Apple of the world. They play in their own sandbox. They do not share with anybody else. So just so you know, if you have a Trane, or if you're selling a home with a Trane, Trane only sells Trane parts at the Trane manufacturer warehouse. So if the part's not available with a Trane, you wait. And that's the biggest knock I have with Trane. That's why I put that in there. Whereas a lot of the other companies like Carrier, Goodman, and all them, they have interchangeable parts. So just so you know, it's not speaking bad about Trane, but I do find that some people get frustrated when they have a Trane because of the part delay. And there's nothing that anybody can do about it, the contractor, warranty, or whoever, because that's just the way that they're structured. But I just want to show you the price, okay? $7,600. Oh my gosh, that's so much money. Now that's a drop in the bucket. I'm building a home right now, and I'm getting literally a buddy discount at $16,500. And that should be a $30,000 system. So these days of $7,600, like 8 years ago, would shock agents. Now we don't bat an eye. But I do want to bring up one more thing. If you have a first-time homeowner and they have an older system, can they afford $15,000 or $12,000 for a new system? Probably not. So if they don't have a warranty, and this is what I always kind of bring out, this is again your fiduciary responsibility. You may have to have that client financed through Wells Fargo or Citi or Synchrony. And right now, I think Synchrony is 31% interest, right? So that's going to be at $16,000 a full car payment. And, we don't want our clients to be house poor. So just keep that in mind. Again, I think that really stresses the importance of when you're negotiating, try to negotiate with that seller buyer to at least have some form of protection on this system. So we're going to switch gears and talk about refrigerant before we do. Any other questions in regards to the systems? No? Okay, so let's talk about refrigerant, because this is the one that we put on the main key bullet point, because there's just so many changes in the industry. So we have Freon, which is R22. We have Puron, which is 410A. Just so you know, Freon and Puron, those are brand names that Carrier uses that we use pretty freely. So if we talk about Freon, it's R22. If we talk about Puron, that's 410A. Again, we're just using a term that Carrier uses, just like when you reach for a box of tissue, you usually call it a Kleenex, but Kleenex is the brand, right? Tissue is really what it is. Or if your child hurts themselves, we put on a Band-Aid. Well, Band-Aid is actually Johnson & Johnson. They've named it that, but it's actually a bandage, right? So we have a tendency to sometimes jump onto really well kind of advertised phrases and marketing pieces. And so that's basically Carrier. So we're going to focus first on R22. Then we're going to talk about Puron, because both of them now have some issues, and it's going to affect our dollar down the road. But let's talk a little bit about Freon. So Freon, just so everybody knows, has been phased out as of January 1st, 2020. So this is the EPA document. And so a lot of times people think that if it means it's phased out, that means it's illegal, and it's not. It's just that they can no longer make Freon as of 2020. So that means that if there's Freon available on the market and you have an R22 system, you can still add it. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that don't let a deal die over R22. Because sometimes I had one, it was a multi-million-dollar deal. Spectra went out, spooked the buyers, they pulled out because I had R22. But that's really not the case. When we're going to have an issue with R22 is January 1st of 2030. That's when the remaining production and import of all of that will no longer be available. So when we get to that bridge and we cross it, then we have to basically go, okay, we need to do something. But just so you know, 2006, 2007, we stopped using predominantly R22 in our systems. Now, if the average system lasts on a split system 18 to 22 years, then 2007 to 2030 is 23 years. So by the time they stop basically putting that ban, let's say, and making it technically illegal to have R22 in a system you're replacing or repairing, then we're going to have a problem. But most likely, those systems are going to be replaced with the newer systems that we have on the market today. So again, don't let that be a panic. And also, just because it has R22 does not make it an illegal system. It's just after 2030, you won't be able to repair it. But a lot of times the Freon doesn't leak. And so you don't have to mess with it, and you can continue to make that system run for years to come. Now, if you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do, I have R22, let's just replace it now. Well, there's other products that are available that aren't under ban for R22. So this is one that's out of California. It's used extensively in the Phoenix area, I do know that. And this is called Blue On. So if you ever have a buyer and you're listing and they're giving you all this blowback on R22, you can say, look, there's other products available that don't have the greenhouse gases or the ozone layer depletion that made R22 an issue. And that's TDX20 or Blue On. So there are going to be products available because other companies realize that. So they've jumped on the bandwagon and have come up with other replacements. Now, this is called, by the way, a drop-in replacement. And what that means is they literally can take out the remaining R22 and they can put this right in there. They don't have to do anything to the system, no alterations to the system, and the system fires up. It actually runs more efficient at a better temp than the original R22. So it's not a be-all, end-all. This is not going to be the end of the world when this actually takes place. And it's good for you to know that there are products available on the market. So before we switch into Puron, which is 410A, is there any questions on that chat that I need to know about? No? Okay, let's roll.
Yeah. Actually, Troy,
yes.
Someone just said new 22 is a great replacement. And then Jeff Miller said not all are heat pump models. So he's talking about the mini ductless systems. He's saying that
That's
they're
right.
not all
That's right. Yeah. So ductless mini splits will come because they're electric in two formats. One is air conditioning only or heat pump, which will heat and cool. Those are the only two options you have. because they're all electric systems. So he is correct. Yeah.
You know what?
So-
I actually just had a bid from 4 air conditioner guys, and they all said they came with AC and heating. They were included in the unit, in the mini ductless system.
Yeah, so that's a couple of heat pump. So the price
Yep.
difference is so small, you might as
Yep.
well just put the heat pump on there. And by the way, those are the most energy efficient systems on the market. They're really good at running off of solar. I'm not going to get into the technology of it, but they were invented back in Japan. And if, I know we're on the other subject now, but if you're in the marketplace, just so you know, the best brand is Mitsubishi. Then it's Daikin, which is owned by Goodman. And then it's going to be Fujitsu. And then probably after that, it's going to be your Carriers, which I think is made by Toshiba and Train and all that. I would avoid some of those kind of weird brand names that you can get on Amazon. They're made by a company called Gold Star out of China. Really hard to get parts, and they're considered like almost like a disposable system. So keep that in mind when you're pricing it out. But by far the best one is, and the one we sold the most of when I was doing that back in the day, was the Mitsubishi. So let's go ahead and talk about 410A now, because we're like, oh, yes.
Troy, there was a few more questions that came through
Sure.
as you were speaking. How old is Blue On, and has it been well tested?
So Blue On, I don't know how old it is, but I've actually been watching this and talking to contractors about it for at least 5 or 6 years. And if you go and research it, you'll see a lot of contractors, especially out of Phoenix, talking about it, and they're kind of 2 cents on it, and it's been very positive. So, you know, what I'm saying is it's an option. If you can use R22 still, because that's what the system was designed for. But if you don't have R22 anymore, or it's too expensive, this is just another alternative that you can look at.
Okay, and one more question. Can you just add Blue On if the system needs it, or do you have to replace all the R22?
You have to replace all of it. So it is drop in, which means that you have to take out the remaining portion of the R22 and then you add the Blue On, because it is like oil and water. Anytime you change these chemical components, they don't mix. So you have to actually have one or the other. So it would be, let's say 10 pounds of Blue On in a system. You can't add 4 pounds of Blue On with 6 pounds left of Freon or R22. All right, so let's move to 410A. This is the solution, right? Thank God we actually have a solution. Well, actually, no. They came to find out that 410A came out in 2006, 2007. And this one is actually way worse for the greenhouse gases than R22 was. So this is the term, if you notice down below, I had to put it in here, it's called GWP. So global warming potential. So 1 pound of 410A that gets into the atmosphere is equal to 1 ton of carbon. I mean, it's mind blowing. Now, what is 1 pound? I brought this out. I don't know if you can see that. 1 pound is 16 fluid ounces. So refrigerant is always sold by the pound, but if you put 16 fluid ounces of 410A or R22 in here and you put it on a scale, it's going to weigh about a pound. And that's how we buy our propane, by the way. It's not by the gallon, it's by the pound. So 2 cups of Puron is equal to 1 ton of carbon. So because of that, they decided to start a phase down. So I have this marketing piece here, and this is the future now. So I have these dates and these arrows. So just so you know what's happening. So as of 2022, and this all happened in 2020, by the way. So this was the AIM Act, American Innovation and Manufacturing Act. So under that administration, they signed into law. As of 2022, 410A was reduced production-wise by 10%. Next year is dropping 40%, 2029, 70, 2034 by 80, and then 2036 by 85%. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that one of the things, and maybe Wendy, you can jump in on this, with R22 is its supply and demand, just like homes during COVID, right? We had all these people wanting to buy homes, but there weren't enough homes to go around. So what happened to the price of homes? Well, they literally went through the roof. So with R22, since they stopped making it, what happened to the price of R22? I'm going to throw you on the spot there, Wendy.
It has skyrocketed. I have seen it as high as $250 per pound. And there's generally between 8 to 10 pounds of refrigerant in an air conditioner. And unfortunately, when you have to replace a fan motor or a compressor because it burnt out, they have to deplete the system of the refrigerant and add brand new back in, because I learned this from Troy, because that refrigerant is considered dirty. And so, I mean, you do the math, right? If $200, let's call it $200 times 8, that's $1,600. And there are a lot of warranty companies that have put a $10 to $15 limit per pound. There's only us and one other company that don't have a pound limit on that, a dollar limit on the pound. So we cover that 100%, which is huge, huge.
It is, yeah. So just keep that in mind. And I just want to explain how the industry works, and it might infuriate you when you hear of this, but okay, so let's say, for example, I have an example here, you see 410A, but let's say it's the green canister, which is the more expensive one right now, which is R22. We're going out to a house and we're going to replace it with a newer system, but there's nothing wrong with R22 system. We're going to attach this container here and we're going to turn on the unit, and it's going to actually force all of that clean R22 into that green canister. And then I'm going to basically turn down the little kind of screw top and seal it. And I'm going to take my Sharpie and write clean on there. And I just added 10 pounds of clean refrigerant into my cylinder there, which is at $200 a pound, $2,000. I'm not going to tell the homeowner that. And then I'm going to replace it with a 410A system, charge them for the 410A, and then go next door to the neighbor who has an R22 system that has a leak and charge them the $200 a pound. Does that make any sense? Well, that's how it's done, because on the truck, they're going to always have two canisters. They're going to have one canister which has dirty, one canister that has clean. And the contractors over the years have known this, so it's just basically a pure profit in pocket. They're actually storing and keeping this stuff on their shelves because they know as it continues to phase down or phase out, prices go up. So expect this to happen with 410A. It's not there yet, but it will be. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist, it's just the reality. So what is the solution? Okay, lo and behold, Honeywell again, who creates all these products, have come out with Puron Advance, which is 454B. Here's the issue though, it's flammable. So we're putting now a flammable material into your system, and most contractors are not licensed to handle flammable material at this time. So, you know, contractors are a different breed. I've worked with them for years and years. A lot of them basically told me, you know what, when this rolls over, I'm out. I made my money. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to get the training. So as a realtor, if you have kids, now's the time for them to get into HVAC, because guess what? They'll be our next millionaires in the future, because this is all just getting crazy expensive as we speak. So again, this is going to start this phase down seriously and moving over to this 454 as of January 1st of 2025. So we still got a few years, but that future ahead is actually pretty much upon us. So home warranty tip, I think you covered it already with the refrigerant. Doesn't matter if it's 410A or if it's going to be R22. What's nice, and this is why I wanted Old Republic to come on, they pay for the full amount. Now, one of the ways I was always explaining it is, if you have a refrigerant leak and the homeowner's paying for pretty much the refrigerant, then I'm going to do a quick repair, because if it leaks out again, oh well, you have to pay for the refrigerant again. But if I'm going to have to pay all that money for refrigerant as a company, I'm going to make sure that the repair is done, or I'm going to replace it. It's probably cheaper. So just remember that when you have those dollar caps on refrigerant, it doesn't seem like much, but they're basically allowing that can to be kicked down the curb, as it were, or down the street, in hopes that they don't renew, and then they're basically flipping the bill for a whole new system in the near future. So again, those R22 systems, I would do the best possible plan there is, because I know that they also pay for what's called recovery and recapture, because you cannot put 410A or R22 in the atmosphere. It's just too damaging. So the EPA requires a whole process for them to go through to turn that in. So again, when you have those better plans through like Old Republic Home Warranty, it will help offset those costs as well. Unless the contractor's taking it and putting it in that canister and using it for the neighbor down the street, which obviously happens on a lot of occasions as well. So let's talk about the future of HVAC, because this is actually now. Does everybody know that we just switched as of the beginning of January 1st to new SEER standards? So I have a little note here. So SEER 2 is now called. It's no longer SEER. SEER stands for Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio, or rating, or ratio, yeah. So what they started finding out was a government said, hey, Carrier, Trane, Goodman, we're going to let you regulate yourselves. And then they realized that Goodman, Carrier, Trane, and whoever were selling units with 15 SEER, but they really weren't 15. So they've actually changed the way that they test these systems now. And so it's called SEER 2. So what ended up happening, because they not only upped the SEER rating, but changed the standards, you'll see to the right there, there's been a 15 to 25% price increase on equipment as of January 1. And I regret that, because when I was building my house, I should have bought my equipment in December, because I would have saved a lot of money, but unfortunately I didn't have that. So if you notice now on the very bottom, I have an example here. 14 SEER is no longer 14 SEER. The new testing is actually rating it at a 13.4 SEER. And we're actually at, here's a new scale, because we're in the Southwest. Minimum SEER rating is 15 now. Minimum SEER 2 rating is 14.3. So again, it means more expensive equipment, more expensive because of the testing, but it's also more expensive because of the fact is it's more efficient. And I have a little scale here. It's not that much more efficient. So if you compare a 14 SEER to a 15 SEER, notice the split, 5%. That's not a lot. But when you think about the millions of households that become 5% more energy efficient, it means, you know, less structure or pressure on that grid. And we're seeing that communities will buckle under heat waves because of the amount of air conditioning that's being pulled from that grid all at once. So really, this is the impetus for this, but it means it's going to hurt our pocketbook moving forward, because we're going to save a little, but we have to pay a lot. And it's just the reality of everything. So any questions on that before we move on to this, how to know how old a system is and all that? All right, let's continue then. So I'm going to show you, again, this app. This is an awesome app. I'm going to show you one other resource. So as an agent, you can go out now or go to your own system, not when it's 110 out, but maybe when it cools down. And you'll know exactly how old a system is. So if you notice, it's the middle tab. This is actually created for home inspectors. That's why it's called Inspector Nation. But you know, as agents, we can take it and we can use it as well. And it's a great tool that you can have on your phone. So if you use it, you're going to be able to know how old it is. But I'm also going to show you how to know how efficient it is, what the SEER is, the size or tonnage of it. Is it a heat pump or air conditioner? I'll show you that real quick. And then also the type of refrigerant. So is it R22 or 410A? And it's all on the manufacturer's label. So here's a Trane. One of the great things about Trane is they put it all on the label. Goodman, Carrier, Lennox, and all them. A little bit harder, but I can show you how to kind of work around it. But this is my old unit back in North Carolina. And they make the same units there as they do here. So this label will work here in Arizona or Nevada. But if I actually look at that manufacturer label, and that's, if you go back, is that silver label that they have, and you just hope that you can read it. But if you walk up to that unit, I'm going to show you what you can see. So they give you the manufacturing date. So this was June 2012. So we're talking 11 years old now, right? What type of refrigerant? Right here, second arrow down, HFC, hydrofluoride carbons, 410A. So this is not R22, this is 410A. Is it a heat pump or air conditioner? Central cooling, air conditioning. So this is not a heat pump, so it will not work in the wintertime. And then over here, I just want to show you this little 36. 36 stands for 3 tons. But you might wonder, well, why does 36 stand for 3 tons? That makes no sense whatsoever, because we're using old terminology for new technology. Just like when you buy a car and you brag about how many horsepower it has, right? I mean, we just know it's powerful, it has 300 horsepower, but can we imagine 300 horses tied to a car? Probably not. So tonnage is actually a ton of ice that melts over 24 hours. Because back in the day, our grandparents didn't have refrigerators, they had ice chests. You know, the trains, they'd pack meat and it'd go across America and it'd stop at ice houses, right? And it'd pack the actual trains with ice. And from that melting of the ice, it would actually help to keep everything refrigerated. So when you see these numbers, 12 stands for the BTUs, 12,000, which equals 1 ton. So when you see these numbers, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, and 60, you always divide that by 12, and that will show you the size of it. And on average, just rule of thumb, it's about 500 square feet per ton. So if you have a 1,000 square foot home, obviously that's going to be probably a 2-ton system. In Phoenix, maybe a little bit more because of the intense heat, or up in Havasu or up in Vegas or down in Tucson. So I just wanted to explain that if you see those numbers. So let's look at another label. Here's another one. This is American Standard, which is also made by Trane. So the labels are very similar, but again, manufacturer's date, right? 12/2007. So again, that was the cutover year. Some units still had R22, some units had the 410A. And if we look over here on that label, HFC 410A, this actually had the 410A. So this is one of the first systems that really came out with 410A. And over here, we can see that this is not an air conditioner, but it's an actual heat pump. So they put it on there. And again, that 36 stands for 3 tons. And by the way, the 5, which is above also, stands for the SEER rating, 15 SEER, which now with the new standards is 14.3. So you can see a lot on the labels when they put it on there, like Train and American Standard. But the issue is, again, we deal with a lot of Goodmans, Carriers, Lennoxes of the world. They are not as cooperative. So this is, again, is that inspector nation. So if you want to put that on your phone, great. I'm going to show you how it works now. So if you have a unit, you walk up to it, let's say it's a Goodman. We're going to click on this little tab here, HVAC manufacturer's date. Oh, by the way, if you run into a system that's like Medea, Duquesne, all these weird brands, that's not going to be on that app. So this is an awesome website for water heaters and HVAC. If you want to write it down, it's building-center.org. That will actually show you how you can read the serial number to know how old it is, if you want to know. Again, we don't want to put you into a situation of liability, but if someone asks you, you're going to say, well, based on what I can see, it's this old. But hopefully it's not going to be one of those weird brands, but they are out there. So we can just use basically the label we're looking at. So this is a Goodman. And what we want to look at is the serial number. So how old is this unit? Well, first of all, if we look at the factory charge, it is 410A. So we know it's got to be 2007 or 2006 or newer. So if I go to that inspector nation, click on HVAC manufacturer's date, you can scroll down and pick the brand. So just scroll to Goodman and then type in the serial number. And when you do and you hit calculate, it's going to show you this was actually created in September 2016. So it actually helps to break down the serial number for you. And don't just always say, well, I see the 16, that's going to be 2016. I see the 09, that's going to be September. That's the way Goodman does it, but Lennox uses a letter for the month. Some companies will put the date on the end. So this actually helps to decipher that for you. It's kind of like that coda ring, right? You used to get when we were kids. Here's another example. What type of a system is it? So we would go to the model number, and that's what's going to show it. First of all, we know the 14 stands for 14 SEER. The 18 stands for 1.5 tons. We divide that by 12. But if I just go to Google and type in the brand name Goodman and the model number, and if you see in the bottom here, Goodman Manufacturing, when I click on this, oops, it's going to show me that this is not an air conditioner, but it's a heat pump. So that means that the heat pump's going to run in the wintertime and heat the home, and it's going to run in the summertime and cool the home. If it comes up, it'll say split air conditioner. We know it's only going to work in the summertime. So again, Google's could be a really good friend of yours to help you kind of decipher that as well. So now we can look at the system. We're like, okay, we know it's from 2016, from September. It's 14 SEER, 1.5 tons. By doing a little research, it's a heat pump. And oh, by the way, it has 410A. So we can actually look at that label with a couple seconds and a couple, clicks of our phone. We can actually get all the information on it. Here's another example. Now, can anybody tell me, is this a split system or a package unit? This is a test.
Package unit.
Very good. Yeah. So we can see it's connected to the home, right? So this one here, is it a heat pump or is it an air conditioner? Is it a gas pack? So basically, again, we can find that out just by doing a little research. So again, with Goodman, we can pretty much figure out how old it is, but I'll just show you, but it has 410A. So again, I'm just going to type in there, Goodman serial number, hit calculate, and sure enough, it's from 2017. But when I go into that model number and I put Goodman in there and I search for Goodman Manufacturing, when I click on it, it shows as a package heat pump. So this is not a gas pack. This is a package heat pump. So it's not going to have propane or natural gas heat. So good to know for clients, because sometimes clients don't like heat pumps. Or I've had situations where an agent will call me and say, do you have heat pump covers? I'm like, yeah, because we have to have a client only buy a home with a heat pump because they have like a reaction to gas for some reason, the chemicals that they have in the gas. And it actually has a situation where they can't live in a home that has it. So there are some benefits when it comes to the heat pump systems as well. So I'm going to flip through some other ones. I just want to show you again. Remember the serial number? You could say, well, what year is this? Is it 2005? Is it 2006? There's a J in there. So again, we know it's R22, which is Freon. But again, we put that in there, HVAC manufacturing date, and we select Lennox, and that serial number, when we calculate it, we'll find out it's from September 2006. So again, it's just a nice little thing that will hopefully help you when you're out. And this will help you also when you negotiate, because when you see that 2006, I would definitely be negotiating a home warranty, the best one possible, because it's not if it's going to break, it's just a matter of time of when, you know, it's going to break. Let's go ahead and flip through here. So I know we're coming up on 8 minutes, so I wanted to wrap this up and then open it up to some questions. So who here in Arizona doesn't play golf, right? So this is like a golf mecca destination, and there's 2 games to play, right? So we see here someone putting, we call that the short game. But there's another game you have to play when it comes to golf, right? Does anybody tell me what the other game is that you play? It's with your driver, right? It's the long game. So the thing is, we have to have 2 games. The reason why I bring this up is that I always look at like title and escrow as a short game. We get you to the final goal of getting your client closed in the home. We all get paid along with Old Republic or another warranty company. Your warranty partner is the long game, because they're the ones who hopefully will step up, take care of an HVAC, and your clients don't even know the bullet that they dodged. And you're not getting those phone calls or complaints, but instead you're asking for those referrals. So again, remember that the home warranty kind of is that strategy for your long game. Obviously, ROC title, we're going to be your short game as well. So that was pretty much what I had. I just wanted to maybe switch it over to Wendy real quick, and I'm going to stop share. When should you upgrade your warranty, Wendy?
You should definitely upgrade it, you know, before the close of escrow. You do have up to 60 days after the close of escrow to upgrade coverage, but it's really important. I mean, really, guys, the Platinum Protection Plan is the way to go. With raising cost on modifications on air conditioners, like I said, I was getting a few bids on a mini split, and they were anywhere from $5,500 to $6,200 for a mini split. I'm like, what the heck? They used to be like $2,500, $3,200, but it was crazy. So air conditioners are not $5,000 like a package unit or a split system. They're about anywhere from $8,500 to $16,000 and up from there. So it is really important to know, you know, what the company that you're working with, what their exclusions are, what their limits are. And again, like Old Republic has no limits. And our Platinum Protection by far is the best plan to go with, because it covers up to $1,000 in modifications. And you're going to need those if we have to replace an air conditioning system. And I've seen that cost go up as well. I've seen modifications anywhere from $800 to $2,500. So again, Platinum all the way. And if you have any questions regarding coverage, please reach out to your local sales rep. We'd be more than happy to help. But we did have some questions, Troy. Yep. Susan had mentioned, I know American Standard is made by Trane, but is it really just as good? Seems to depend on who I ask.
I would say it pretty much is the same thing. I mean, it's kind of like Chevy to Buick. I guess you get more bells and whistles on the Buick, but it's still the same manufacturer, made in the same plant. It's actually owned by a company called Ingersoll Rand, which is a humongous generator company. So Coleman is made by York, and Carrier makes Bryant, makes Payne. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you're just paying more for the brand recognition than you are the equipment. So the focus should really be on the installer. I always say that's the most important thing. Who's going to actually properly install the system, because that's the difference between a 10-year and an 18 or 20-year system, and also the efficiency. So make sure that that's the most important thing. Sometimes when you're paying more, you're going to have a quieter system, a more efficient system, but the brand does not really matter as much as it used to. And the only time I would say that I would probably say brand is if you can, and you're doing a retrofit. Amana is made by Goodman, but it's their basically premier line that they sell. And if someone is actually doing Amana, they have to have very few recalls for Amana to allow them to actually install for them. And the reason why is they have a lifetime warranty on their system as long as you own the home. So with that type of exposure that Goodman's putting them through, they're not going to go with a contractor that does a lousy install and they get a lot of callback. So if you're gauging a contractor, if they are a Mana installer, let's say a Mana carrier installer or a Mana train, that's a good contractor. That to me is the litmus test that will sometimes help you determine who you may want to use if you don't already know somebody already.
Awesome. And then I just wanted to make a quick reply on when I said that we were replacing the 2 air conditioners on one of my clients' homes in Sedona. It was actually a 15 SEER, not a 14 SEER.
Yeah.
So my mistake.
Yeah, so just remember that too. Warranty companies have to play the same game as us, which means that when the federal government raises the standard rates, they have to be in compliance with the federal standards. There is a time where they'll allow for the older systems to be installed to get used up. But usually what ends up happening is your big companies like your Canbys, Pulte's and all that, they know it's coming. So they'll just go and buy everything and they'll warehouse it because they don't want to take that 25% hit. So by the time us, the consumer, rolls around and we're ready to put our system in and say, well, maybe we can get one of those older systems. Yeah, those are long gone. Those are long gone. They're out there, but they're sitting in a garage or a warehouse somewhere with a big dollar people that know that that's going to save on their bottom line another 25%. So just keep that in mind as well too. I did have one more slide I wanted to show. I'm just going to share it real quickly, okay? And then we can go back and answer this question because I just want to make sure we do our get money back guarantee. Does everybody feel more like this, enlightened, opposed to this? All right. If that's the case, then I did my job. By the way, I teach 2 other classes and we can go back to some of these questions and I can stay online to answer those. I teach a class on plumbing, which I think we'll probably do here in the near future. And you know, Justin, I need to get CE certified like you, because some of his classes you can actually go on Zoom and do and get actually credits. But I do a class on plumbing. I'll show you how old water heaters are, but mainly we're going to dive into polybutylene, how to identify it, the red flags, where it leaks, why it leaks, and then things you can do to protect your clients. So that's a class in itself. And then now that it's 110 out in Phoenix, we're not going to talk about heating because you're hot enough as it is. But when it gets colder, I think we should probably talk about that because there are so many different systems out there on the market. It's good to know kind of when you go into a home, what are you looking at? Like, for example, what is a hydronic system? Well, they have them, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit too, but that'll be in the future as well.
Hey, Troy, really quick.
Yeah.
We've had a few people with Androids that were not able to find the app. And
Okay.
so just put in there, what is the app for an Android for the inspection HVAC?
So I would just go into Android and search Inspector Nation or IN HVAC calculator. So IN, which stands for Inspector Nation, HVAC
Just put a link
calculator.
into the box so you guys can go and click
Oh,
that.
there you go. Thank you, Justin. So there you go. He has it in the box. So if you can just do that and hit that little link, that will take you to there. And honestly, I've talked to agents who took this class and they're like, yeah, I'm going to try it out. They're like, oh my God, I used it 3 times this week. I feel like a rock star. And that's what we want. We're a rock title. We want you to feel like a rock star when you're out there. I just say knowledge is power. Now, obviously, we want to get you into a situation where they say that, you know enough to be actually dangerous. We don't want that, right? So no getting up on roofs, by the way, to look at that gas pack on there, okay? No Supermans here. It's just stuff that's accessible, that's at your fingertips if you find that it actually helps you out. And I like that, Amy. Thank you. It is a ton of fun, right? And yes, thanks a ton for coming.
Hey, Wendy, did you see that comment from Patrizia?
I did. Yes, anyone can buy a home warranty at any time. The only difference is if you're not going through a sale, there would be a 30-day waiting period unless you're coming from another warranty company. Then we would waive that 30-day waiting period. And there was something else I wanted to address on here really quick. Where is it? Oh, gosh, I forgot. That was quick. Sorry. Thank you all so much for joining today. So appreciate it. And if you have any questions for Troy, please reach out to Troy. And you know what, Kim?
I'm going to put my email in here. So just in case you need to reach out to me, troyh@ROC Title. And maybe the home warranty reps can put in their emails as well, because they're obviously very experienced as well. So you have Kim Farrar, Wendy Mueller, Tara Carter's on, Vicky Hart. So, we have several reps here for Old Republic where you can actually reach out to them too with any home warranty questions as well.
Very cool,
Awesome.
guys. Thanks so much to both Troy and the Old Republic Home Warranty team. We really, really appreciate the partnership. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your dedicated rep, and hopefully we'll see you guys in escrow very, very soon with a home warranty. And of course, please write in ROC Title on your next sale. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next training. Have a
Thanks,
great weekend,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone.